Sounds good. Thanks, Grace. All right. So let's get started. Hi, everyone. Happy Saturday morning. Hope your hackathon's going well. I'm going to go through a sample pitch first before I introduce myself too much. All right. You guys ready? I'm going to consider that a resounding yes. All right. So every day, 1 million bottles and cans are thrown away, but they could be recycled. If you do the math, that's 365 million per year, just in Vancouver, right? Global News BC reported on that. Now, Vancouver is known as an incredibly green city, and we are doing great, but we can do so much better, right? If we want to be truly sustainable, if we want to set an example for the world at all levels, we have to educate ourselves, educate people, and give them the tools to minimize waste and maximize recycling. And that's why we developed VanScan, a mobile application which lets you take a picture of garbage and tells you if it can be recycled and how. And it uses the Google Vision image recognition API, as well as disposal information from the city of Vancouver. So you know exactly where your garbage should go. And so we're going to show a demo, but we're not actually, because I don't have one. And in the future, after at this hackathon, what we're going to do, VanScan right now is only Android, so we're going to make an iOS application. We want to make it accessible, right? We want to make this on all platforms, maybe even a web app too. And we also want to use a more comprehensive machine learning framework to be able to categorize not just more things, but categorize things better, right? So we're going to increase the amount of garbage that we can recognize. And when more people use this application, more people, the application is going to get better at it. It's going to feed in data to itself, right? And that's going to make this application a flywheel. It's going to make itself better. And finally, we want to increase the educational material about recycling methods. Thank you for listening to my pitch. Now, if you were paying attention, you'll know that was really quick, right? When you go and do your hackathon pitch, it's going to be really quick. You don't have a lot of time. So you got to get through the points that are important really quickly. You got to get right to them, and you're going to skip over all the extra stuff. Disclaimer, I didn't do any of this. I just made this up. I Googled the project. I made a pitch for it in about 10 minutes. But the trick is here, I'll teach you how to use a framework to make a pitch for any project that you do. It's easy, it's simple, and it's going to make your life a hell of a lot easier. Right? We're going to break down all the components of a project. I'm going to rebuild it back into a pitch. All right. So quick introduction. Today, I guess we're going to go through an introduction first. I'm going to talk about the different components of a pitch, especially a hackathon pitch, how to build those pieces, how to build them smartly and not spend too much time on them, and then how to make those hit hard, how to actually give your presentation some impact. And then we'll have a short question period at the end. All right, quick introduction. I'm currently an Amazon software developer. I work in Alexa as a data engineer right now. I graduated from SFU Software Systems in 2021. I was working at SAP and Samsung before then, about 2 years of co-op. So that's plenty there, and a 7-year degree, which is normal these days. I mentored in 10 hackathons so far, and I've participated in 9. Out of those, I placed second twice. And every time I'm the only person who actually wants to pitch. So hopefully with this framework, you'll feel like pitching is a little bit easier or a little bit more fun. All right, let's go into the components. Step 1 of making a pitch. Take a look at your project. In a perfect world with infinite time, what would your project be able to do? And I'm going to stop you right there because the answer is not everything. A lot of people like to say it's going to do everything. It's going to cook my breakfast and it's going to dress me up and take me to work. You have to focus on the core functionality of your project. Imagine it was perfect. Imagine you could do anything and everything with all the time in the world, but you had to focus it on that one responsibility of the project, the core functionality. What would it look like? So for example, Tesla, we all know Tesla is an electric car company. They have been saying for the last 9 years or so, every year, they've been saying next year, our electric cars are going to be fully autonomous. They're not fully autonomous, but they're aiming for that vision, right? And when they say that, when they talk about what are our cars going to look like, what are people going to be able to do with them, we all know they're not there yet, but we all can see what they're trying to aim for. We can see that they have this better world in their mind's eye. That's what they're aiming for. And that's what you have to try and create. Given a little janky project that doesn't quite work, that's okay. Imagine what you could do with it. How could you apply this technology? For example, for VanScan, what we looked at was increasing accessibility of sustainability, right, of recycling. In this case, the vision is a world where the information and technology about recycling is easily accessible, right? Anyone can access it. Anyone can look at their garbage, use this app and say, well, I can imagine knowing how to recycle everything, right? Of course, suit that to your own project. So once you have a vision, you start from that and you work backwards. There's a problem that the vision is solving, right? It might be really small. It might be really big. It might be, I don't know what to dress in the morning. You know, I need something to help me pick out my clothes. Or it might be, I want to solve world hunger, and this is going to increase accessibility of food, right? It can be crazy big, crazy small, but every vision has a problem. You just have to figure out what that is, right? And you know, you're making this up too, right? I know you probably didn't have this in mind when you came up with your idea. That's okay. That's how it starts, right? When you come up with your project, you want to play with something cool, but when you're building your pitch, you want to convince your audience that your project is actually doing something cool. It's doing something cool and filling a gap in the world because something needs to be done. And again, that can be super stupid. It can be, I've seen things like, oh, we need more Trump chatbots. Go crazy with it. Make it funny if you want, right? That's what makes things interesting. If you want, you can do a little research. You can see in VanScan, what I did was I took a number, a random number. I just Googled number of unrecycled bottles in Vancouver. And I just grabbed a number from an article and that's it, right? Numbers make your case very easy to pitch. You start off with a number. It's a big number. Wow, that's a problem that needs to be solved. Here's the solution, right? I love numbers, easy. Look at studies if you want, look at news articles, look at things that are relevant or, you know, are tangentially relevant, and then tie them back to your vision. You know, in VanScan, again, it was, we're not recycling enough. We're not, you know, there are things we could be recycling, but we don't know how to, right? We don't know what to. And in this case, I found a statistic that quantified what the problem is and how big it is. All right, the demo. The demo part is the most obvious part of this. It's going to be, what did you make, right? This is the simplest for all of you guys probably, because you're just going to go through your website, you're going to go through your app, and you'll be like, well, I did this, and then I did that, and I did that, right? I'll encourage you not to focus too much on we did this or we did that. Focus more on what is the core functionality of your app. If a user brand new opens this app or this website and they click through it, what are they going to see? What are they going to experience as a first-time user? For example, you might say, you know, you open the Facebook page, you know, the homepage of Facebook, and you're greeted with the sign-in page. After you fill in your information and make the account, you're on the home page and you see your Facebook wall. On your wall, you have a continually updating list of posts of your friends, right? The most recent and relevant content right at your fingertips. You can also navigate to your profile and see your previous history. Look up your friends, blah, 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 right? You focus more on what the application does and less on, well, I built the homepage using JavaScript and this and that. You can always list your tech, try and list that later, because if you load them with tech at the beginning, it's not interesting because they don't, you know, anyone can use JavaScript here. the important thing is not that you use JavaScript necessarily, but the important thing is that you use JavaScript to build a website, right? So show them the website, show them what you built, and then tell them you use JavaScript to make it. Right? You can have, you often will have one person walk through the entire user interaction. This is easiest because you don't need to keep switching around. You might have assign just one person to take them through the entire demo. And the demo should be maybe about 1 minute, or let's say a third of your time during the pitch. And don't list every single feature you've implemented. You know, that's not the idea to say, you know, we did this and then it does this and then it does that. Focus on the core functionality, because if you start listing all the features, people either start doubting that you made it all. They might say, oh, did you actually do all those features? Or they'll get confused, because if I say van scan also sorts my laundry, and it also does color recognition, and it also does this, and it also does that, you know, that sort of takes away from the whole idea of it being a cool new app for recycling, right? To make recycling more accessible. Focus on the core thing that you want it to be important. And don't show code. Please don't show code. Please don't walk through your code and say, I use this function, I use that framework. You can talk about it, but showing code is probably one of the best ways to lose someone. So advanced scan, what I might do for my demo is I might show them the front page of the app. I'd open the camera in the app and I'd scan some items on a table, and I pull up the information about the recognized items. Maybe this one's a bottle, and this one goes in a certain bin. This one's a crumpled piece of paper, and that goes in a certain bin. And then let's say, oh, I want to learn more about paper recycling. So I pull up some information on paper recycling relevant to Vancouver. And then I'd stop there. I might say, you know, I did this using Android, using Kotlin, uses Google Vision API, but I wouldn't start trying to go into more features, because that's going to confuse them, right? Focus on the core functionality. I can't stress this enough. And finally, future improvements. So what kind of cool features could you add if you had more time? This is like a couple steps before vision, right? Vision is like a perfect world, finishing your entire project. Future improvements is just, what are the next couple of things I could do if I had a little bit more time, right? Generally try and be more realistic with these. For example, I talked about iOS. I talked about, what did I talk about? I've forgotten now. Let's pretend I remembered what I talked about. You know, talk about things. Oh yes, machine learning framework. You know, you can say, oh, I'm going to make this library better. I'm going to work on this library. I'm going to implement a better technology, right? So if you could work on this project full-time for a month, for 2 months, what would you implement? What's a cool thing to add? What's a cool thing you wanted to add but never got to? And, you know, try not to think to talk about things you're missing. Try not to be like, well, we never really actually got the app working, so I'd like to get it working. You know, don't talk about that. If they're going to ask about it, they're going to ask about it. But focus on, you know, imagine the app works. Imagine your project works. What is the next step? What is the next cool thing to add? Yeah. And so putting all of these components together, right? So I started with vision, and then I went to problem, right? I used vision to build a problem, working backwards. I talked about the demo, what you created, and then I moved on to some future improvements that you could do. And you're going to flip the order when you do this. You're going to do it this way: problem first, right? Vancouver sucks at recycling. We need to recycle better. Vision: we want to make Vancouver great at recycling. We want to put that power in everyone's hands. Demo: this is the app that we made that lets you do this. It's, you can touch this, you can do that, you can go through here. It's made using Android. Future improvements: after this hackathon, we want to add a framework. We want to add a feature. We want to make it easier. We want to make it nicer, whatever it is. So you're going to tell the story from start to finish. And this has a natural flow, right? Because you're going from a problem to how to solve that problem to your specific implementation of that vision. And then given your implementation, what are the next cool things to work on, right? I hope you kind of understand that this is a flow that connects itself together. Okay, and then the last, yeah, okay. So for VanScan, again, I guess we went through this. We don't have to go through it again. Okay, and for my last section, how to hit hard. So you can make your presentation structured. You can make it planned ahead. You can build all these components and put them together, but there are still more things that you can do to make this more fun or more interesting, more compelling, right? So when I did that pitch, I prepared it, right? I didn't come up with that on the spot. If I came up with it on the spot, I'd be but this, and then I mean this, right? I'd be making stuff up. I'd be going back and forth. Don't make up your pitch on the spot. Just write down a quick framework, maybe 2 sentences for each section, right? That's 6 to 8 sentences max if you go through all those, right? Write down those sentences, write down those bullet points, and figure out what exactly you want to say so that you don't forget, right? You're going to practice that a couple of times, make sure you have it down with friends. And then when you get to the pitch, you're just going to rattle off those bullet points. And it's going to be really simple. It's going to be really intuitive. A problem, a vision, right? What is the problem? How do we want to solve the problem? A demo, how we implemented the vision, and then future improvements, next cool things you want to do. And once you have this planned out, you can also assign, let's say, 1 to 2 people to talk about these, maybe 1 person on future improvements, and then 1 person on the vision and on the problem and vision, and then 1 person for the demo, right? That way, everyone has their own section, everyone is included, and you get the same people doing each section every time. That means you get better at it, right? You get to practice. And please practice. Please practice just for a couple minutes before your presentation, before you record your video. It's really, really helpful. Every time you practice, you get a lot better, right? You get your lines out. You don't have to say, and you sound like you know what you're doing, right? Please practice. It'll help a lot. Length. Keep it short, under 2 minutes. People love to rattle off everything that they've done and everything that they would ever do. They like to have 10 points of future improvements. They like to have a demo that goes through every single detail and every single graphic they made and everything. When you saw what I did for VanScan earlier, that is basically the length that you should be pitching that section, right? Ignoring the demo, which is a gap there, you should be doing 2 to 3 sentences per section, no more. You should not be rambling. You should not be talking about on and on and on about these things. If you keep it short, 1, you'll be within the time limit. And 2, it hits harder because they're not getting a bunch of words thrown at them. Generally under 30 seconds per section. And when I do it, I use 2 to 4 slides total. You don't need a lot of slides, just 1 per section, because they're not going to read all those bullet points, I promise you. Keep it short, keep it clean. 3rd, passion, right? I am a comp sci person. I cannot say that I am the most passionate person about recycling. But when I put out that pitch, I paused and I thought about how important it was to have recycling, to have these systems, to have a sustainable ecosystem, right, in Vancouver. It can be a fake problem, again, but it's important that you pretend that the problem is important, right? If the problem isn't important or it's not funny, why bother solving it, right? Who cares? Who cares if I don't get, like ultra super clean water? If there's not a problem to solve, no one's going to spend time on it. Pretend the problem is something big. That's what the statistic is for. The statistic is a qualitative measurement that your problem is actually important. Pretend your problem is important. Pretend your vision is really cool. Pretend your demo is really cool, that you built a lot of things, and pretend you're actually passionate about the future improvements that you want to make. Take your time doing the presentation, put your heart into it, be passionate, right? This doesn't have to be anything to do with too much time or practice. It's just, pretend it is important to you. It should be important. At least the pitch should be. And finally, have fun, right? This is a really cool opportunity for you to showcase what you've done over the last 36 hours. If you want, you can make the problem funny, you can make the vision funny, you can put in your little jokes, whatever it takes, right? Have fun, take it easy, and it's a conversation. You're showing someone something cool that you've made, and you're showing them why it's cool, right? So for example, in one hackathon, I used silly pictures. There's a big infrastructure diagram. There's a backend server here, and there's backend server here, and there's a front end here. And that was really boring. So I put stupid little like fantasy creatures on them to showcase, like the personalities of the server. It doesn't want to talk to us. Go wild, do whatever, have little fun with it. And that's everything I have today. Yeah, I think that's all. So to summarize, you want to start off with your vision. You want to figure out what that vision is, that big picture. You want to create a problem out of that. You want to show your demo, make sure you have that functionality ready. And then you want to figure out the future improvements. And then when you end your presentation, you just say, thanks for listening. Any questions? And that's how I've ended my presentation too. So any questions? I'll give you guys a couple seconds. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. So I wanted to ask a little bit about imitating technology or the implementation, because we were currently exploring how we're going to implement a certain concept, and we stumbled on the idea that do we just imitate how the implementation is going to work, or do we use the actual technology? So say if you wanted to have a machine learning algorithm do some things for you, right? So for now, if we're not able to, we don't have much time to incorporate that into our application, do we just simply use an if-else statement to provide a demo for it and say that in the future we're going to incorporate actual AI to this? Or what level of imitation is allowed in this particular demos?
Sure. So yeah, for one, I'd start with your first priority is making it compile, right? If you need an if-else statement, go with the if-else statement. That's totally fine. Then when you pitch, for example, you might say, okay, we weren't able to complete it. Yeah, that's right. It was a complex integration, so we weren't able to fully finish it. But in future improvements, we would make sure to add that on, right? So you can totally be honest with that. I even go so far as to make a joke out of it. I'd say something like, instead of the AWS machine learning framework, we have added the next best possible machine learning framework, which is an if-else statement. But next time we'd upgrade to AWS. Exactly. Yeah. Does that help a bit?
So do you have to be defensive about what you're exactly using as implementation, or can you just be vulnerable and it's okay with the audience?
Oh yeah, 100% vulnerable. As long as you're honest, they can laugh along with you. You can share your struggles. Just be straight out and be like, hey, we had trouble with this, so we use this or that. At the same time, try and share what you're aspiring to, right? It's not just your implementation, right? It's what you wanted to build.
The idea, what the idea
exactly.
is about.
Yes, your idea, right? That's what's inspiring necessarily. And no one's going to build, Uber in 36 hours. The idea is you made something that kind of looks like it has a little bit of functionality and that you're passionate about this cool idea, right?
Exactly. Okay, yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes, good question. Thank you. I see a question in the chat. How should people prepare for the QA section? Honestly, the best way to prepare for that is to practice once or twice with your friends, with other people from other teams, because they're going to come up with questions like, did you actually do this? Or what would you do next? Or, how does this actually work? Or what about this other app that I've heard of that does something similar or the same thing? They're going to come up with these problems and questions that you never probably could have answered. But if you can think about it yourself and think about, hey, if I were to poke holes in this, if we were to talk about the most vulnerable parts, the most missing gaps here of the most common hackathon project, think about a general hackathon project and then poke holes in, right? What kind of questions would you ask to give someone a hard time? And those might be questions that someone else is going to ask too. Practice is best. It's going to give you the most experience. But if you can't do that, that's okay too. Do your best. Any other questions at the moment? You can unmute yourself or drop them in chat. Okay. If no other questions, then thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed. I wanted to keep this short because your pitches should be short too. Go ahead, Grace.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeffrey, for that awesome workshop. I hope everyone who's attending learned a lot and you'll take his advice in to help formulate your pitch for tomorrow. And yeah, I know I learned a lot myself as well. And I believe Jeffrey might be around for help if you do need help with your pitch here and there in Discord. He is one of our mentors as well. So yeah, you can probably try to reach out to him respectfully if you do need some more advice. And yeah, again, the Socio challenge code has been posted in the chat. So make sure you enter that on Socio to be entered into our fun little draw. And yeah, we'll see you for the next workshop. So our next workshop will be with HSBC. If you are interested in building a project for their best banking hack challenge, that will be at 10 and there'll be representatives there to answer any questions you have. And yeah, thank you again, Jeffrey, and we'll see you all at the next workshop.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck hacking.